And today is my pleasure and honor also to present you one more of such practices that is going to be by our speaker from Finland. We call today's idtalks Art, Story, and Mental Health. We are going to talk about how we can create processes that give young people a way to talk about difficult issues, how visual arts and storytelling help to name, explain, and accept feelings and understand why they surface, and how to use objects and metaphors to easier communicate about mental health concepts. So without further ado, I would like to present you Laura, our today's speaker. She's a visual art practitioner, critical designer, and art activist with a master's degree in visual cultures and contemporary art and bachelor degree in both product and graphic design from Finland and UK universities. She mainly works in the field of organizational learning, active citizenship, and youth work. And what fascinates me most is that Laura values really the small everyday things and turning everyday objects, stories, and seemingly mundane materials as an inspiration and key element for her practice. Laura, I would like to pass you now the floor, and I encourage our audience, both online and here on Zoom, to be active, ask questions in the chat, and just follow. Let's be taken away by art.
Well, thank you very much. Like said, my name is Laura Mellanen, and I'm a visual artist, and I come from Finland, from a place called Lahti. It's a very precious hometown of mine. And Maria, can I have the slides, please? So I have technician helping me, or technical support helping me with the slide sharing. So could we have the second slide, please? So here we go. Like said, I have the privilege and wonderful opportunity to share the next 90 minutes with you this afternoon. And I'm going to be sharing first a little bit about how I have ended up doing what I do nowadays. And then I'm going to share you a little bit about my own art form, what I do and how I do it. And then also I will speak about the potential of art in general. Then we're going to concentrate a little bit on objects. So on this very everyday material that we have around us and how we can use it, or how I have been using it, and what kind of potential there is. And then we're going to have a little creative activity and then time for questions and answers. And if we take the next slide, please. Art has always been a vehicle to me, or it has been always a tool for me. So instead of using it as a source for self-expression, I have always used it for something else. I've used it in a context, and it's a vehicle towards something good or better or change. And for example, during the recent times, I have started to think that we should actually more and more actively combine research, knowledge and data and scientific facts with evocative way of knowing things, and that means art. So if we think about the situation where we are at now in the world, we are facing a lot of crises and many very troubling issues. And if we take the climate crisis, for example, there is loads and loads of information about it. There is research, scientific facts, and still the change that should happen is not happening, or it's happening very slowly. And I'd like to claim, or start making this claim, that every time we approach a topic that is scientific based, for example, we should approach it also through aesthetic way of approaching, or evocative or bodily or aesthetic way of approaching. And if we take a little look at the picture that is shared there, I want to elaborate on my career, which is actually not a career. At first, when I was younger, it looked like it that I have some sort of a path that I'm following. And then there was a very significant turning point in my life or in my working life, which changed everything. And then I entered the wild freelance work field. This happened to me, the turning point happened to me in my late 20s. I was working in an engineering and technology corporation. It was a big company and I was doing things globally, and it was business to business marketing. And well, first I was working as a product designer, and then after that in marketing department as an in-house graphic designer. It's a very good job. Like my mom said, Laura, that's a good job. You can retire from there, and like a proper career. And I enjoyed myself there, but for some reason, I don't know exactly why, I started to pay attention to the things that I wasn't kind of supposed to pay attention in the position that I was at. And I started to make different kind of, well, outside the box suggestions. And I have to remind you that this was 20 years ago when this kind of talk, this innovation talk, for example, wasn't very popular. So I made some radical suggestions that didn't pull through, like, for example, that I suggested that we should compose a music piece or like an audioscape with the products that we were manufacturing, because those equipment that we were producing had an interesting rhythmic soundscape. So my suggestion for my boss was that we should start to make music as well. Well, obviously that didn't pull through. But some of the suggestions went through, and one of them was a suggestion of mine that because there was a new product launch coming up, I suggested to my boss that we should arrange a workshop where we participate workers from each and every department of the company to join in and innovate around the product launch. And my boss, this gentleman with very high status, said to me that, yes, Laura, you can do it, but if you fail, you will never do this kind of thing in this company again. And luckily, I was still young and fearless. And I was just thinking, okay, I'm sure it will go okay. As it did, it went well, we arranged it. And I also got a kind of generous amount of time to organize it, which is nice. So we spent, I think, 2 or 3 days working on the topic with many people. It was also successful in that way that it really showed me that I want to work with people. So it showed me that I don't actually want to do design and creative work for the sake of the end result of the creative process, but because it's a social event, or it can be used for social means and these kind of personal creating connections between people and also people within themselves. And as an end result, I resigned. And then that's when I entered the freelance work. And after that, I have been working in many different contexts and organizations and situations, which I will tell you a little bit more later on. I work with many different types of groups, but my 2 main focus groups or focus areas are work organizations or communities that don't work with art, so non-artistic organizations, and then young adults. So those are my kind of 2 favorite groups. Can I have the next slide, please? And if someone asks me what kind of art do, I use the word context art. It's not a common term in the field of art, but and I kind of make the explanation myself. But by context art, I mean that I always do the art to a certain topic that is predetermined. So someone approaches me with some theme or context and invite me to explore the topic with artistic means. And it can relate to many different things. It can be engineering, or it can be residential area development, or it can be the unemployment of young adults or whatnot. And I would like to emphasize here that when I do art and in context of mental health, I don't consider myself doing therapy at all. Instead, I utilize the empowering potential that art has and the self-expression path that it creates. And this is what I work with. It's not intentional from me, but it's all the time there. And I acknowledge it and I allow it to happen when I'm facilitating a workshop, for example. Can I have the next slide, please? So, like I said, I'm a visual artist and a graphics designer who doesn't like to draw. I have never liked it as an act of professional practice. I do draw to entertain myself, but I don't use it in my work. And when I was younger, I tried to change this a lot. And I really tried to force myself into drawing and develop the skill, but I just kept feeling uncomfortable. And for some reason, I think it's the designer background in me that made me realize that it's the objects that intrigue me. And I find them fascinating. I like them for many reasons, one of them being that they are 3D. So you can take a look at them from different angles. So I basically replaced the drawing with objects and building little things and making new arrangements and then narrating around the things that I have created. In art field, those are called ready-made objects or ready-made art, actually, and found object art or object assemblies or assemblage. And if we take a look of the slide there, the two red things at the edge of the slide, they are actually from a 7-minute stop motion animation that I did. I only used this kind of a, I don't know if you can see also on my screen, but this kind of a red cotton. So all the illustration was made with this kind of thing. And then the thing in the middle with the playing cards, we made with young adults, group of young adults, a 6-poster set of societal posters that were placed in the street advertising posts at the city of Lahti. So the thematic or the theme of the posters were sustainability and the questions the young people have or had related to that. And then those 3 other things, those are Moment Museum objects. Moment Museum is a art form of mine, and we go back to that a bit later. And can I have the next slide, please? So here is a quote from a conceptual artist called Douglas Hubler, and he says, and I fully agree and relate, that the world is full of things already. And they are interesting. And so he or I don't wish to add any more things. We just want to rearrange things and see them differently and see what's there. And this is, I think, one of the things why I really love and encourage people to explore the potential of objects and stories around them is because objects are accessible and they are ecological. So the objects are everywhere, and once you start to observe your surrounding, paying attention to the objects, your everyday environment becomes a bit like a treasure hunt. So, so it's a nice challenge for everyone. And then can I have the next slide, please? So this is my favorite child, Momo. It means Moment Museum, and it's a artistic process and a concept that I have been developing since 2019 or 18, so many years. And there is a process which starts again with the context. So these are always somehow commissioned work from me. Someone approaches me and invites me to join in something else, but with my own language and the art, making of art. And always there is a group of people involved as well. So there is a context, but also the community around the context. So, and it can be youth work or residential area development, like I said, or industrial engineering, university lectures, for example. And there is a research question kind of above everything, that if there was a museum for this moment that we are in, it could be this moment where we are in now. So if there was a museum made for this, what would be in it? What is precious now that is around us? What should be saved and remembered? Also in a kind of in a negative sense, that what should we be critical about in this moment? And as a part of the concept, I have developed a set of props which resemble museum aesthetics. So there is big black cloth and little stands, little lights, white gloves. But when the process starts, the museum is empty. Can I have the next slide, please? And then the actual work begins. So I dive into the thematics and the knowledge and the research and people's experiences on the theme. And I produce artificial art objects or artificial museum objects about them. I'm not trying to translate what I hear and learn, I'm not trying to illustrate anything that someone else is saying. Instead, what I hear and learn from the people or the material that I get into, I use it as an inspiration and make artistic interpretations about them. And then once the objects are done, they are displayed somewhere in so the museum that was at the beginning empty, it gets the substance. And then people are invited to see the objects again. So they are kind of played back to the group, and they can give the meaning to the objects also. So they can, so the museum objects allow them to make meanings that they think are crucial. And then sometimes towards the end, I also create like a museum catalog, but I don't do it every time. And then after this is done, the whole thing disappears. So that I don't have any portfolio or Instagram page or anything. I don't save these. I save them in my studio, but not like publicly. So it's in the moment and then it's gone. Can I have the next slide, please? So here are a couple of examples of the museums objects that I have made for Momo. And maybe, well, first of all, what I think is important and why Momo works so well is that because the aesthetics of the things that is produced and then interpreted together, it's from your everyday life. Like we know what banana peel is and we have an experience about it. But then or a beer can or white collars. But then when they are a little bit manipulated, we can get from this as-is state, this realistic association that we have in our head, the manipulation gives us permission to think further or imagine further and think in a way like as if. And for example, if we look at the banana over there, it's a object that I made very quickly at the site while someone was giving a lecture at the university. And this was for the industrial engineers, adults who were already in working life, had been there many years. The topic was a very technical engineering based innovation topic. But through these objects, the group started to talk about their vulnerability as workers and also a fear of failure and expectations that you like, how harmful it can be that you set the expectations to somewhere and then how you feel after it turns out to be something else that you expected. So this is kind of a practical example how the objects work. And can I have the next slide, please? I'm just trying to keep up with the time and make sure that I'm not falling behind. In one point of my freelance adventures, I ended up working in the academic field. So I was working with the researchers in a university for many years. I didn't do academic work myself. Instead, I was working as a practitioner side by side with the researchers, providing ways to do the research part differently in different means, but also make the reports differently. And I started to notice that even though I'm not an academic, it gives me strength as a practitioner to look at the way I work also in a theoretical light. And then one of the kind of a key researchers that I lean on is an American philosopher, Alva Noe, or No, I don't know how to pronounce his name. He himself is not an artist, but he explores and researches the potential of art in the light of art theory and as a perception and cognitive science. So what happens in our brain when we are involved with art? And Alva Noe's main claim or statement is that art is a well, first of all, sorry. So he has a book called Art, Strange Tools, Art and Human Nature. And his main claim is that we really quickly, already when we are children or little people, we get, things get organized in our head. So if we take scissors, for example, so we very quickly get familiar with them, know exactly how to use them, and this makes our life easier. And Noe calls it like getting, like the brain organizes things. And this is, of course, a good thing. Like if we take a door handle, for example, it's good that we know how it works. We can get through the door and life continues. But unfortunately, the same principle applies to other things as well. Mental things and immaterial things, societal things, and also to our personal perception of ourselves. So we get stuck, or our way of thinking about ourselves diminishes or gets more narrow, and we get conditioned to things. We conditioned to societal structures, for example, that we might think that it's a silly idea that if there's an election that we couldn't give a no vote. So it's the only way to vote is to vote yes for someone. But actually, why couldn't we also give a no vote to something that we really strongly object? So this organizing happens with on many different levels in us. And Alva Noe says that, don't you worry, art is a great tool for getting our brains like reorganized or making things strange again in a good way, so that we are able to question them and maybe create new relations. And can I have the next slide, please? And then a couple of more other researchers that I like to read, or I think that are supporting the way I work. One of them is Claude Levi-Strauss, who says that human mind is wonderful in that way, that we have a skill of using whatever is at hand to create something new. Then there is Muhammad Yunus, who is actually an economist, Nobel Prize winning economist. I think his topic was on microloans in developing countries or something like that. And he says that change always starts with imagination. So the imagination is the key to every change that starts to happen. So we have to be able to imagine things before anything changes. And he talks about the thing called social fiction. So it's a bit like science fiction, but it's fiction on social relations. Then there is John Dewey, who is a pragmatist. So to him, art is an experience rather than end result of some sort. And his thinking is based that because art is an experience and it happens on personal level, it has a straight link to self-determination, so that it gives you the strength and resources to be independent and self-determined. And also this is linked to the healthy democracy. Maybe I skip the two last ones. And can I have the next slide, please? The reason, this is now a little bit tricky to explain. I think there are several principles in art that should be actually borrowed outside the art scene a lot and more actively. And now we are approaching also the field of mental well-being. So all these things apply. So in art, whenever you start doing art or you are involved with art, you get a very strong or a strong sense of permission is there. So intuitively, when making art, we think that we are allowed to do things. So and then when you exit the art sphere or the making art, you might start like this sensation, it's not so strong anymore. And sometimes I feel that it gets smaller and weaker, even though it shouldn't. So if we do art, we can practice this strong sensation of permission. Also in art, our whole personal repertoire, what we are, where we come from, what our last night's dream was, it's valid material, and it justifies us, it tells who we are, and it's allowed to broad up. Again, when we enter the art sphere, many things become like, well, this is irrelevant in you. And the third one is the idea or the notion of continuous practice. So I like to use the sports metaphor here, that if we think about healthy body in a physical way, we kind of think that and know that, okay, we should exercise regularly. And some people talk about creative fitness. So in the same way, we should practice the creative practices on regular basis. So it becomes like a deep-rooted part of us, and also like a natural way of being. Then there is this radical, the possibility for radical imagining or radical imagination. This is something we already covered a little bit. So art is the area where you are allowed to be, you are allowed to go over the top. You are allowed to imagine and then imagine even further. And no one can say that, okay, you can't do this. And then the last one is an open process. And can I have the next slide, please? So this I want to elaborate through a personal experience of mine again, but I think it probably applies to many people. Several years ago, I made this horrible observation about myself, that I had lost to approach things in any other way than linear way of thinking. And by linear thinking, I mean that you set a goal, you design the steps, for the goal, and then you start to proceed. And of course, this is good. Again, there are good sides and bad sides. And so this is good, and we need this kind of approach. But I personally noticed that whenever I had to approach or start doing something that I couldn't describe where I was actually heading to, I felt really uncomfortable. And it's sad because I'm an artist, and that's the starting point of art. So you have to trust the process and then just start doing, if I put it somehow in a very basic way. I think in my case, it had been the very positivistic world around us that applies to every one of us, combined with the very goal-oriented corporate world that I was from originally. And then also the very lonely working life of a freelance person. So in a way, when you work alone, most of the time, you don't have a support in organizations or colleagues. You are kind of alone, and then you want to stay on the safe side. And you take this linear way of thinking, because then you know that at least I will do something if I do it like this. To overcome this thing, I started to study art again. I applied to university, and already in the interview, when they went through the applicants, I said to the jury there that I want to unlearn the linear thinking and relearn again the open process and this hermeneutic way of exploring things. And I got in, and luckily, I was really, really lucky to have a good teacher. And she took me very seriously with my goal and was really encouraging me and pushing me towards certain ways of making the school projects, so that I would just start and don't think about anything else. And then once I have started, then maybe think that, okay, what is interesting at this point? Where could you continue? Can I have the next slide, please? And just so if we talk about if we take a closer look on objects and what they are and how they can be used. I know this is now a very simplified process description, but the way I work with objects, and I think this is kind of a universal way to approach it, is that you start by searching. So you have your surrounding. It can be anything. I have done a artistic process on a street with people. So we basically work with the stuff that we find on the street. So the first part is looking your surrounding and somehow determine what you find visually and metaphorically interesting there. What calls you or what appeals to you? And then once you have done that, you might want to connect something with what you have found. So if I found the scissors, for example, I could combine it with some material of some sort, or just by this kind of making, if there's an object that is like this, if you open it, the object has a very different meaning again. And in Finnish, they're saying that you make a big thing out of a fly. So in a way, working with objects, it is this, that it's a very simple thing, but you start to make it bigger. And but the other thing what you can do with the object is that you frame it somehow. So if we have an object here, and then if you frame it or you place it somewhere on a different kind of a surrounding, it becomes something totally different. If same applies if you think about like a snapshot photo of a messy table and there is scissors there, it looks something. If you place the scissors on a red velvety pillow, they become something different. they become maybe precious, or maybe the scissors belong to a royalty, or maybe someone is cutting a ribbon with those scissors, and that's why they're there. So this is where the storytelling, or I actually should call it maybe narrating or meaning making, starts to happen. And then in that way, we move on to the third phase, where we examine the kind of features of the object, or the object and the framing in a new light. And that's where we get, I think that's the point where we finally get the permission also to give our own meanings to what we have found. So it becomes, in a way, your property, or your objects, and you're entitled to make the meaning or give the meaning to it. And then the fourth step, of course, if we're talking about community art or making participatory art processes, then there is the narrating and sharing that. We come back to that a bit later. And can I have the next slide, please? So if we a little bit dissect what the objects are made out of. So first of all, we are playing with the people's or person's associative mind. So immediately when we see an object, we get a thought in our head. And these two objects are actually from a small suitcase that I have. There is maybe 30 little objects in there, and I have used that suitcase, for example, with young adults when they were unemployed young adults, and they were applying to the employment activities provided by Lahti Youth Services. And I had noticed that the application process was really nervous-wracking for the youngsters. Even though we tried to make it very easygoing and relaxed, it was somehow too formal. So then me and my working partner, we decided that we're going to start it with a very simple activity that the youngsters would, in the recruitment process, describe themselves first with the objects, or they would describe their best quality with the objects. And it created this whole different atmosphere, starting with the moment when the person was digging into the suitcase, like, oh, what's in there? And you could laugh with the objects. There are funny things in there and very serious things in there, and that gave like basically a meaning-making moment already in the point where we first time met with these people. And then the other potential there is the familiarity. I don't know if that's an English word, that the object is familiar for everyone. It's easy to approach. It's like a friend or something you have seen, but also it's a tool into something more strange. And all the objects, they can work as symbols and metaphors. And when it comes to the metaphors, I think it's a wonderful thing, because the metaphor can be, and these connotations, they can be personal, they can be shared. So you and me might have the same meaning for the objects, or if it's different, then that's also interesting. And then they can be also cultural. So depending where you come from, the symbolism is different, and that can be the basis of the shared meaning making and sharing, that you talk about the differences, the cultural differences that is related to the object. And can I have the next slide, please? So the I guess, or I have learned that when we think about thinking about ourselves, and if we talk about the mental well-being, or our skills to explore our personal features, it's very important to understand the difference between observation and interpretation. So it's important to understand that you can make objective observations about a thing, about a person, about an object, and then you can also make interpretations. And I think objects are really good tool to teach this kind of skills, this differentiation skill in people. And then also they can be tool for aesthetic distance, which means that it's kind of I think the term is originally from drama, that in theater, if the play is covering something very sensitive or a hard topic, you can create the aesthetic distance to it through aesthetic means and still talk about the issue itself. And so in the picture, there is the lock and someone stuck a piece of a puzzle in it. And the explanation there, it's in Finnish, it says that emotional lock unopened or unable to open the emotional lock. And then the nesting doll, there it says that I'm a prisoner of my outer shell. I'm being what I imagine I ought to be. So these things that are presented there, they were done very quickly, but also we got into very meaningful and personal conversations just through these simple things. And can I have the next slide, please? And I don't know, this might be a cultural thing now, but in Finland, there are many people who has this kind of a visual, you know, in school you have arts, like drawing lessons, and your teacher says that, oh, Laura, your duck doesn't look like a duck, I'm sorry. So you have been, in a way, taught to think that you are either good or bad in drawing, or that you are not visually very capable of producing things. What's good with objects is that they always have the visual features in them. So you don't actually have to, as such, create anything. And the two examples here, they were again created by young adults. Both of them, well, the other one was, I think, quite oriented in visual expressing, but anyway, the other one was really kind of reluctant to do anything. And then they found the copper wire and these bits and pieces for a scale. And then they built it and was really proud of themselves, saying that, oh yeah, the brief or the kind of a question we were covering in this process was that what would you give yourself a trophy for? Like if you could give yourself a trophy for something, what would it be for and how would the trophy look like? And then this person who made the scale said that she thinks that she has been recently been able to find kind of a balance inside of themselves. And then I think the other picture is more kind of obvious, but we discussed a lot about the how the ADHD is actually also a really positive force in a person. Now I'm checking how much time do I have. So can I have the next slide, please? And these examples are from an inspirational event on mental health in youth work. And this is, we had a workshop there where the young participants were answering to a question with this kind of arrangements, like object arrangements. And the question was, what is lacking or what do you miss in your life in the terms of mental well-being? And they made the arrangements they were photographed, and then the participants were also interviewed. So that gave us an opportunity to somehow hear more. And then the pictures were shared in social media with the young people's stories or little texts, and scientific research that was on the same topic. Like, for example, the freedom picture, the text, it goes like this: freedom, if this is a free world, why do I feel like being in a chain? If everyone is supposed to be equal, why does transphobia still prevail? And then when we posted these, we combined it, or my colleague I was working with, she combined it with the European Commission, European Public Health Association's research on the topic of the freedom, or the sense of freedom that young people have or actually don't have. And in the middle, there is this mind my own passions and realize my talent. And that was the person wanted to talk about how she or they feel entitled or that they should follow the path their parents think is good for them in a professional way. And then in a way, I think if we think about the mental health and youth work topic, this recognition piece is very important again, because I think through youth work, it's exactly the sense of recognition that we can provide or offer to young people. And if we go just a little while back to the previous slide, there is this quote from Anna Esnin. She's a writer, and she has said that we see the world not as it is, but as we are. And I think this is a kind of a beautiful way to stop this part of the presentation and and I don't know, contemplate on this thought that I don't know if you agree with Anais, but I think this is the way it is. And more we provide some sort of channels or ways to see, to express what we are and what we see, the healthier we feel, or more stable in a way we feel. All right. And, if we go to the next slide, again, sorry about that, bouncing back and forth. So now I would invite you to join in for a little meaning making moment. So we can spend something like 15 minutes on some radical imagination or thinking further. So yeah, I was about to introduce myself. I'm Laura Mellanen, and I'm a curator and the janitor and the only worker of a museum, Moment Museum. And I'm really happy to have you people here with me, because I'm in a little bit of a trouble. There is an exhibition coming up in our museum, and it's on the topic of mental health and exactly recognition, if I'm more precise. That's the name of the thing. I have received 3 different objects that ought to be presented in the exhibition, and 2 of them I have done quite a good work, I would say, by myself. Can we have the next slide, please? Now I'm not sure if it's better to look at the photos or the physical thing here. Let's see. So the first object I'm going to introduce you to is something that is called receiver. So it's from 2 or actually 3 different parts. So there is this kind of a old school receiver, and already from this object we know that this is something from the past. So it's not the current thing. This is actually a device that has been used, or it was developed for reading people's thoughts, and the developers thought that it would help us to cooperate together, but it ended up being too precise. So actually when it worked like this, that you open the doll, you put something like a hair of mine could be put in here, you close the doll, and then you plug in, and then you can listen. But the thing is that not all the thoughts are for everyone to be shared. So you need your privacy, and then they decided that, okay, this is actually a harmful product, so that they took it out of the production. So that's one thing. Then there is another thing which is called a monoview. So it's an eyewear made out of, there are these kind of handles, so I don't know how you call these things on glasses, and people who with a very narrow point of views were wearing these. So that and luckily this is also the things that we don't need anymore. So we have been able, as a society and as a communities, we have been able to understand that it's not only one view. There are 2 eyes and multiple views. And then can I have the next slide, please? So the third one, this is now where I need your help with. It's a structure of some sort. I don't know, maybe this would be better now to just share my camera instead of the picture. So you would see it big. So it's a structure like this. You might recognize the material. It might, like, they might be playing cards, or there might be something that looks like playing card, but it's not a playing card. And then there is another piece there. So it's kind of this kind of a thing that you can, at least traditionally, it's something that you hang on your neck, but it might be something else. And the only information I have about this is that it somehow relates to mental health or mental well-being, the structures around us, personal existence, or something else. And my task for you now would be that if you could take a little moment and give your own interpretation what this is. You might only want to give like a name to it. It can be only a name, or you might want to give a little bit longer explanation. And maybe it would be nice if we could do it on chat, so we can kind of like read the results from there together. Would this be okay?
Yeah, sure. We can use the chat for writing. I'm sorry, I was disconnected because of my internet cut for a moment.
Sorry, do we have to give a meaning for like the both objects, like a combination of both, or like the 2 objects but in a separate way?
Very good question. Thank you for that. As it usually goes when you are doing museum research processes, you might only know about one thing. You might know about the other thing. You might assume that they don't actually link together. So it does, like, either way, any information that you have on these objects is good and relevant to the.
Okay. Thank you.
Laura, if you want, I can also read from the chat. So
Yeah, that would be really nice.
Claudina thinks that it could be titled My Social Roles or Faces.
So it's like a modeling of someone social roles and different ways we have to be socially.
We still don't have other options, but we really encourage our audience to be creative and active in the chat.
Can we also speak out loud, or do we have to use a chat?
Yes, I
It's
think
okay to speak.
yeah.
Sure.
What I see is that, well, for example, the card that is hung to your neck is like, I don't know, like a way of saying that we try to give a consistent and like coherent image to the world for ourselves. Like, I'm an extrovert, or I don't know, I'm a scientist, whatever. And that's what you show, and you kind of feel the pressure to act like that. But in reality, we are a mix of different things. Like, and that's where I see the other object, because we are like a combination of different things, and that's actually, I don't know, I think that's a great thing. And a lot of times we tend to hide that part and only show that other part that I see it connected with the other thing you said. And I don't know, like a piece of art that said that someone was like only being what she thought she was ought to be. That's what I kind of...
Yeah. Yeah. So this is kind of this is the hidden truth in a way. And this is what we are somehow forced to show. And this is because it comes to our neck, it's almost like we are somehow stuck with it. And we have to hang it there. We have to carry it with us, and it restrains us. Very well. Very interesting. Any other analysis?
Laura, I think connection of Anna is lost again. So I will read what Milan wrote, or Milan, if you want to to read it yourself, that's also possible. So Milan wrote, the structure of the cards can represent the complexity of the human being, and the card necklace, the simplification of someone, and labeling, hanging a card necklace on someone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good.
Rahma wrote, within perspective from different angles. If anyone wants to clarify or give more details, that's possible. You can unmute yourself. Emotional clarity, Malena.
That's really beautiful.
Another interpretation.
Yes.
From Malena.
Yeah. But we can already now see that even though these are manipulations, we find certain similarities together. And then also at the same time, we are able and we are allowed to see them differently as well.
Those are all we got at the moment in the chat.
Yes, and that's perfect. That's very, very good. And I think if none of you co-researchers don't want to share anything anymore, I think we could continue to the questions and answers part. And then I think there was some other issues that you wanted to cover as a organizing team. Yeah,
indeed.
So thank you for this, everyone.
Thank you. So now it's your moment to ask questions. So you can unmute yourself or raise your hand and take a floor and ask questions to Laura, or just reflection on what you have heard today. While waiting, I have one, Laura. I'm still amazed by the fact that you don't save anything on exhibition that you make, the exhibition of the moment. How hard is to let that go? And I think that's really important when we're talking about mental health, no? That you create something, you put it out there, and that you can just close it. And when the moment is over, it's like you let it there in the past or in the moment. I'm really impressed by that.
Well, I think it's there are two issues why it is like that. First of all, I'm a big fan of drama processes and applied drama and also theater. And but I don't do it myself a lot. Like there is a little bit of acting involved with the Moment Museum, for example. But what I like about drama is that it happens within the moment, and because it's not documented, there is somehow less pressure because there's no proof left. So then in some moments, it really liberates the way of doing. And then also I think when it comes to art, people are sometimes so stuck with that, is the end result nice? Or is it fancy? Or is it like, is it cool? Or yeah. So if we kind of get rid of that, it also liberates our way of expressing. And I don't know, I'm also a little bit lazy. So and then if you have an Instagram page or a portfolio, you have to update it. And then maybe the third or fourth reason is that because many times they are very personal, the meaning-making moments are very personal. I'm not so sure if it's even a good thing to kind of distribute them further. And then if I only distribute the picture of the objects, it's only half of the kind of the work. Yeah, so these are the reasons. I do save them. I save the objects in my own studio. I have this kind of a brown boxes where they live, and then I might reuse them in occasions like this or some other session. But yeah. And there's someone raised their hand.
Yeah, no, that I was curious about what kind of population do you do these workshops with? Like there are other adults, sometimes they're also teenagers, and how do they come to your workshops? That was my...
If we talk about the age of the people, they are middle-aged people who are in a working life. I think I don't think I have done this Moment Museum with age-rich elderly people, but with people who are still working. And then I have done it with teenagers a couple of times, and then these people who are from age 18 to 29, something like that. Yeah. And the group sizes can be from, I don't know, maybe the smallest group have been 10, and the biggest one something like 30. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And then maybe, I don't know if you were asking this, but also that how do these people come to the workshops? They are always communities or group of people who have some link to the context that I'm working with. So if we take the project that I did with the residential, I took part to a residential area development project, and the area is it's a kind of this kind of a rough neighborhood, I would say, in my hometown, if there is such a thing. This is super safe place, but anyway. So the people who are living there were involved, but also people who somehow are active there, like people from the local pharmacy, people from the local who own bars and restaurants there, people from church, people from different associations, the youth workers who do their work there, the library, and so forth. So that they are like relevant focus groups of the topic.
Okay, nice, thank you.
But I would have a question for you. I don't know if you want to answer, but let's let's see. So what I was introducing you, did it feel complicated? Like, does this logic of working with objects and this kind of a meaning making, does it feel complicated somehow? Or is it something that you feel that is very easy to kind of grasp?
I don't think it's either too complicated or like too simple, but I think you have to get on that mindset. Because like if you're not really used to get into artistic ways of expression, I think it may be harder to maybe see a banana and to just say, yeah, explore another meaning or something. So I think it can be complicated. But if you like those kind of things, I guess it's easier to just change the mindset and get to the work.
And I really encourage, like, you don't have to manipulate the objects. You can only work with the plain objects just like that, just by changing the background or changing the framing, or I don't know, using a torch or flashlight to look at the shadow of the object. So it's kind of I think it's good to keep it simple, and so that you feel comfortable with working that way. And then it's a successful applied art.
Sophia here is saying that it's interesting approach, easy approach, especially starting with daily objects. So probably starting with daily objects, and maybe with groups who are not used to work with art.
Yeah.
Maria has a question, so please.
I have another question. Why is being in the moment so important, especially in connection with mental health?
Oh, that's a big and very important question. I think this goes back to the fact that, well, I claim that we as a nation and a humankind, we are losing ability to trust the open process. And we are all the time somewhere else than here. And if you're not in the moment and you are looking at your goal or your next step that you're heading to, you lose what is there now. And I think, well, at least to me, it creates this kind of a free floating mindset, and not in a good way, that I feel really disconnected with things.
Thank you.
I don't know if this is the moment, but I would be really interested to see maybe a sneaky peek of the visual recording. I don't know.
Thank you very much, Laura. I see your device that you shared before, that was this mind reading one, is actually hooked to my brain. And you actually guessed what was my next move. So that's a really, really kind of you. I know it's a dangerous device, but sometimes it helps in complicated technical environments. So, Olaja, are you ready to reveal the art? Because I think in the introduction part, I did introduce you, but didn't introduce what you are going to do throughout this hour and a half. Now we are really, really ready to see what you have come up with.
Okay, can you hear me? Yes, super. Then I have the first version of it, because I am myself listening to the talk a little bit like it's a podcast or some background music. Can you see it full screen at the moment? Yes, okay, super. So I was really just diving deep and experimenting a little bit, and just following a bit the examples, and trying to imagine actually what it would be like to right now take an object from the room where I am and try to look at it with different eyes, or put it to different uses. And it's like, it's very inviting actually. So yes, now I still have a few areas that are blank that I will complete as usual after a few days, and then there will be the full version of this visual summary with all these perspectives, new approaches that Laura has shared with us. And I am really, really curious personally to bring it to practice and see what it leads me. So there is this uncertainty path, and this invitation to see where you end up, and that's very exciting. So thank you, Laura.
Hey, thank you. This looks wonderful, and I think it's always like a little bit like a present. That if there is someone who is actively listening and producing something out of what you say, it's like, wow. And then it also gives this impression that maybe I made some sense because someone has been able to draw this. So yeah, that's really nice. And I like the fact that you took the challenge and you search for something from your own surrounding. And wow.
Thanks a lot, Olaja. And thank you very much for our great audience today. Maybe at this moment, there is still a couple of minutes for Laura to conclude today's presentation. Maybe there are some final words that you would like to say, or something that you would like to share as a message after your talk, something that you find important for us to take away.
Well, maybe this is a related what I'm about to say is related to my current position or current situation. I have 1 week and a half ago, started a new job for 8 months. And I'm working as a regional artist of the region here called Päijät-Häme. And it's basically artwork outside the art structures. And it's very grassroots work. And I have noticed that we really need unite our forces and testify and talk why art is important. So that I really encourage you to keep repeating the message that there are other ways of being in this world than analytical, linear, engineering way. And if we keep repeating that, then I think we become stronger. And like I said in one point of the presentation, I think that's the only way for making the changes that we need. So that's my conclusion words.
And thank you very much, everybody, for being here, for being a great audience, for your comments, for your warm words of thanks. Many people, they had to leave at certain point before, sending you a lot of positive vibes in the chat. We will pass them to you. And yeah, and we have one more ID talk for this season to come in 2 weeks from now. Really hope that our participants will come back. And for today, this is it. Thank you very much and have a nice rest of your day. Bye-bye.